The sound of boots scraping against dirt and the smell of whiskey mixing with dust were constants in Jackson, Wyoming. But Willa Vance had grown numb to both as she sat outside the Lucky Dollar Saloon in the summer of 1878, her empty tin cup rattling with the single penny someone had tossed her way that morning. She had been sitting in this same spot for 3 weeks now, watching cowboys and miners stumble in and out of the establishment, their pockets heavy with wages they would gamble away before sunrise. Her dress, once a respectable blue cotton, had faded to a gray that matched the wooden planks she leaned against. The fabric was torn at the hem, and dust had worked its way into every fiber, but she had nothing else to wear. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her face, and she kept her green eyes downcast, unable to meet the judgmental stares of the women who crossed to the other side of the street when they saw her. It had not always been this way. 6 months ago, Willa had been traveling west with her uncle and his family, hoping to start fresh in Oregon. They had stopped in Jackson to rest and resupply, but her uncle had caught pneumonia in the mountains. He died within days, and his wife, never fond of Willa to begin with, had taken the remaining money and continued west with her own children, leaving Willa behind with nothing but the clothes on her back and a cruel suggestion that she could make her own way. At first, Willa had tried to find honest work. She had knocked on every door in town, offered to clean, cook, or mend clothes. But Jackson was a rough town, and single women without family were viewed with suspicion. The respectable families had no use for her, and the less respectable establishments offered work she refused to consider, even as her stomach growled and her ribs began to show through her dress. So she had started begging. It was that or starve. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink when a shadow fell across her. Willa looked up, expecting another drunk cowboy or perhaps someone who would tell her to move along. Instead, she found herself looking into the weathered face of a man who appeared to be in his early 30s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of strong coffee. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and though his clothes were dusty from travel, they were of good quality. A rancher, she guessed, not a drifter. Nathan Tucker had noticed the young woman sitting outside the saloon for the past 3 days, each time he had come into town for supplies. She could not have been more than 21 or 22, he estimated, far too young to have the hollow look of defeat in her eyes. Something about her struck him differently than the usual beggars who occasionally passed through Jackson. Perhaps it was the way she kept herself as clean as possible despite her circumstances, or the fact that she never called out to passers-by, just sat quietly with her cup, as if she were trying to disappear. "How long have you been sitting here?" Nathan asked, his voice gentle despite its deep timbre. Willa was startled by the kindness in his tone. Most people either ignored her completely or spoke to her as if she were less than human. 3 weeks, sir," she answered honestly, her voice hoarse from disuse. "You have family in Jackson." She shook her head. "I have no family anywhere anymore." Nathan studied her for a long moment. He had come into town to hire a new housekeeper. His previous one, Mrs. Chen, had moved to California to live with her daughter, leaving his ranch house in a state of increasing chaos. He had never been good at keeping house, and cooking anything more complicated than beans and bacon was beyond his abilities. He had planned to post a notice and conduct interviews, but something told him that this young woman needed help more urgently than he needed a perfect housekeeper. "Can you cook?" he asked. Willa blinked in surprise. "Yes, sir. My mother taught me before she passed." "Can you keep house? Mend clothes? Basic things like that?" "Yes, sir. I am a hard worker, I promise. I have been trying to find employment since I arrived, but no one would have me." Nathan made a decision that would change both their lives. "I have a ranch about 5 miles outside of town. I need a housekeeper. The work is honest, the pay is fair, and you would have your own room and 3 meals a day. Are you interested?" Willa could hardly believe what she was hearing. She struggled to her feet, her legs cramping from sitting for so long. "Sir, I would be more than interested. I would be grateful beyond words." "The name is Nathan Tucker. Can you ride a horse?" "Not well, sir, but I can manage." "We will ride together then. I have business to finish first." "Can you wait here for an hour?" Willa nodded eagerly, afraid that if she spoke, she might cry and embarrass herself. Nathan tipped his hat to her and walked into the general store across the street. She watched him go, hardly daring to believe that her fortunes might finally be changing. True to his word, Nathan returned an hour later with packages under his arms and leading 2 horses. One was a large black gelding that he clearly rode regularly, and the other was a gentler-looking mare. He secured his packages to the saddle bags and then helped Willa onto the mare. His hands were strong but careful as he steadied her, and she felt the first flush of warmth she had experienced in weeks. They rode out of Jackson as the last light faded from the sky. Nathan kept the pace easy, mindful that Willa was not an experienced rider. As they traveled, he explained that his ranch, the Triple T, had been in his family for 10 years. His father had started it, but both his parents had died in a flash flood 5 years ago, leaving Nathan to run the operation alone. He had 15 ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse, a herd of about 800 cattle, and enough land to make a good living if the weather cooperated and the rustlers stayed away. Willa listened, asking occasional questions, amazed at how easily Nathan spoke to her, as if she were a regular person and not someone he had found begging in the street. As they rode, she felt some of the tension that had been coiled in her chest for weeks begin to loosen. The ranch house came into view under the light of a rising moon. It was a substantial structure, built of logs and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Smoke rose from the chimney of a long, low building she assumed was the bunkhouse. Nathan helped her down from the horse and called out to one of the hands to take care of the animals. Inside, the house was exactly what one would expect from a bachelor rancher. The furniture was sturdy but arranged without any thought to aesthetics. Dishes were stacked in the wash basin, and dust covered most surfaces. Papers were scattered across a desk in the corner, and the whole place had the air of functional neglect. "I know it is not much to look at right now," Nathan said, almost apologetically. "Mrs. Chen kept it proper, but since she left 2 months ago, I have been too busy with the ranch to keep up with it." "It is a fine house," Willa said, and she meant it. After sleeping in alleys and doorways for the past 3 weeks, any house with a roof and walls seemed like a palace. "I can have it looking proper again in no time." Nathan showed her to a room on the 2nd floor. It was small but clean, with a bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the corral. "You can settle in tonight. We will discuss your duties proper in the morning. Are you hungry?" Willa had been hungry for so long that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to be full, but she hesitated, not wanting to seem too eager or desperate. Her stomach betrayed her, growling loudly in the quiet room. Nathan smiled, the expression softening his rugged features. "I will take that as a yes. Come down when you are ready. I will heat up some stew." After he left, Willa sat on the bed and allowed herself finally to cry. But these were not tears of despair. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. She cried for several minutes, then washed her face in the basin of water that had been left on the dresser, straightened her hair as best she could, and went downstairs. The stew was simple but hearty, full of beef and vegetables, and Willa had to force herself to eat slowly. to not make herself sick after so many days of near starvation. Nathan ate across from her at the kitchen table, occasionally glancing her way, but giving her the dignity of not staring as she ate with the desperate hunger of someone who had not had a proper meal in far too long. "Tomorrow I will take you into town and we can get you some proper clothes and supplies," Nathan said as he pushed his empty bowl away. "Whatever you need within reason." "Sir, you have already been more than generous. I can make do with what I have until I earn enough to buy my own things." Nathan shook his head. "You cannot work in a torn dress. Consider it an advance on your wages if it makes you feel better. I pay $30 a month plus room and board. Does that seem fair?" Willa nearly choked on her stew. $30 a month was more than generous. It was almost extravagant. "Sir, that is more than fair. That is exceedingly kind. You will earn it, I promise. Keeping house and cooking for me and occasionally feeding the hands when we are working late will keep you busy. And please call me Nathan." "The constant, sir, makes me feel like an old man." "Yes, Nathan," Willa said, testing out the informality. It felt strange but pleasant. Over the following weeks, Willa transformed the ranch house. She scrubbed every surface until it gleamed, organized the papers on Nathan's desk, mended the curtains, and cooked meals that made the ranch hands beg to eat at the main house instead of the bunkhouse. She took pride in her work, grateful for the opportunity to prove her worth. Nathan was a fair and considerate employer. He never spoke to her harshly, always asked rather than commanded, and treated her with a respect she had rarely experienced. In return, Willa worked harder than she had ever worked in her life, determined to show him that his faith in her had not been misplaced. But as the weeks turned into months, something began to shift between them. It started with small things. The way Nathan would linger at the breakfast table, talking with her about his plans for the day. The way Willa found herself paying extra attention to which shirts he preferred, making sure they were always clean and mended. The way their hands would occasionally brush when she served him dinner, sending an unexpected warmth through her body. Willa tried to ignore these feelings. Nathan was her employer, her savior. She owed him everything, and she would not repay his kindness by developing inappropriate feelings. But the heart, she discovered, did not always listen to reason. One evening in late October, a storm rolled in from the mountains, bringing with it cold rain and howling winds. Nathan and the hands had been out checking the cattle, making sure none had wandered into the more dangerous ravines. They returned soaked and exhausted just as Willa was pulling a roast from the oven. The hands headed to the bunkhouse to dry off, but Nathan came into the kitchen, dripping water onto the clean floor. Willa immediately grabbed towels and handed them to him, scolding him gently for not taking better care of himself. "You are going to catch your death standing there in wet clothes," she said, pushing him toward the stairs. "Go change into something dry. I will bring you hot coffee." When she brought the coffee up to his room a few minutes later, she knocked softly on the door. Nathan opened it, having changed into dry pants and a clean shirt that he had not yet buttoned. Willa found herself staring at his chest, at the muscles earned from years of hard ranch work, at the scar that ran along his ribs from some old injury he had never mentioned. She tore her gaze away, feeling her cheeks burn, and thrust the coffee toward him. "Here, drink it while it is hot." Nathan took the cup, his fingers brushing against hers. Neither of them moved for a long moment. The air between them felt charged, heavy with something unspoken. "Willa," Nathan said softly, and the way he said her name made her heart race. She looked up at him, meeting his dark eyes. What she saw there took her breath away. It was not the look of an employer regarding his housekeeper. It was something far more intense, far more personal. "I should go," she whispered, but she did not move. Should you?" Nathan asked, setting the coffee down on the dresser without looking away from her. "This is not proper," Willa said, even as she found herself swaying slightly toward him. "I know," Nathan said, "but I find I do not care about proper anymore. Willa, these past months having you here, it has changed everything for me. This house is not just clean now, it is a home, and it is a home because you are in it." Willa felt tears prick at her eyes. "Nathan, you took me in when I had nothing. I was begging in the street. You gave me a chance when no one else would. I cannot take advantage of your kindness by what? By letting me care for you. By admitting that you might care for me too." Nathan reached out and gently cupped her face with his hand. His palm was rough from work, but his touch was incredibly tender. "I see the way you look at me sometimes, Willa. The way you smile when I come in from the range. The way you always make sure my coffee is exactly how I like it. Tell me I am imagining it." Willa closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite herself. "You are not imagining it," she admitted. "But Nathan, we are from different worlds. You are a successful rancher and I am someone you found begging on the street. What would people say?" "I do not care what people say. I care about what I feel and what you feel. The rest is just noise." He tilted her face up gently. "Look at me, Willa." She opened her eyes and found him looking at her with such tenderness that it made her chest ache. "I am falling in love with you," Nathan said simply. "I think I have been since the first day I saw you sitting outside that saloon, trying so hard to maintain your dignity in impossible circumstances. I admire your strength, your resilience, your kindness despite everything you have been through. You are not just my housekeeper. You have become the most important person in my life." A tear slipped down Willa's cheek, and Nathan wiped it away with his thumb. "I love you too," she whispered. "I have been trying so hard not to, but I cannot help it. You are the kindest, most decent man I have ever known." Nathan smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger, happier. "Then stop trying not to. Let yourself love me. Let me love you. Marry me, Willa." Willa gasped. "Marry you, Nathan? We have only known each other for a few months. I know what I want. I have known for weeks now. I want you to be my wife, not my housekeeper. I want to build a life with you, a real life. I want children with you and grandchildren and 50 years of waking up next to you every morning." He took both her hands in his. "I know this is sudden, and if you need time to think about it, I will wait. But do not tell me no because you think we are from different worlds or because of how we met. None of that matters. What matters is that I love you, and I think you love me too." Willa felt as if her heart might burst from her chest. Here was this good, honest man, offering her everything she had ever dreamed of and more. How could she possibly say no? "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you, Nathan Tucker." Nathan let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around the room. Willa laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in longer than she could remember. When he set her down, he kissed her, and it was gentle and sweet and full of promise. They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Jackson. The entire town turned out, curious about the rancher who was marrying his housekeeper. Some of the more respectable matrons whispered behind their fans, but most people were genuinely happy for them. The ranch hands threw a celebration that lasted well into the night, and several of them admitted they had been taking bets on when Nathan would finally propose. The wedding night was tender and wonderful. Nathan was patient and gentle, understanding that Willa was nervous. He made her feel cherished and safe, and when she woke the next morning in his arms, she felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Life as Nathan's wife was everything Willa could have hoped for and more. She still kept the house and cooked, but now she did it as the mistress of the home, not as an employee. Nathan consulted her on decisions about the ranch, valued her opinions, and treated her as a true partner. Winter came, harsh and cold, but the ranch house was warm and filled with love. They spent long evenings by the fire, Nathan reading aloud from books while Willa worked on her sewing, or simply talking about their dreams for the future. In the spring, Willa discovered she was pregnant. Nathan was overjoyed, immediately becoming even more protective than he already was. He worried constantly about her health, insisted she rest more, and drove the hands crazy with his anxious hovering. Willa found his concern endearing, even when it became excessive. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she teased him one afternoon when he insisted on carrying a basket of laundry that she could have easily managed herself. "I know, but you are carrying my child, our child." "I just want to make sure you are both safe," Nathan said, setting the basket down and pulling her into his arms. Willa softened against him. "We are safe. We are happy. Everything is perfect." And it was. The months of her pregnancy were some of the happiest of her life. Nathan was attentive and loving, and despite the physical discomforts of carrying a child, Willa bloomed with health and happiness. In early December of 1879, during a snowstorm that blanketed the ranch in white, Willa gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Thomas after Nathan's father, and when Nathan held his son for the first time, tears streamed down his face. "He is perfect," Nathan whispered, staring down at the tiny face with wonder. "You are perfect. I love you so much, Willa." "I love you too," Willa said, exhausted but happier than she had ever imagined possible. As Thomas grew from a baby into a toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. Nathan expanded the herd, bought more land, and built a reputation as one of the most successful ranchers in the territory. But he never let the ranch consume him. Family came first always. He made time to play with Thomas, to take walks with Willa, to maintain the connection that had brought them together in the first place. 2 years after Thomas was born, Willa gave birth to a daughter they named Rose. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair, and she was as spirited as her brother was calm. The house rang with laughter and the sound of children playing, and sometimes Willa would stop in the middle of her day, look around at the life she had built, and feel overwhelmed with gratitude. One evening, when Thomas was 5 and Rose was 3, the family sat together on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Thomas was telling a long, rambling story about a frog he had found by the creek, while Rose played with her doll in Willa's lap. Nathan had his arm around Willa's shoulders, and she leaned into his warmth, contentment settling over her like a blanket. "You remember the day we met?" Nathan asked softly, his voice just for her. "Every detail," Willa said. "I remember thinking you were either an angel or I was dreaming." "I remember thinking you were the bravest person I had ever seen," Nathan said. "Sitting there trying to survive with your dignity intact, I knew right then that you were special." "I was so scared," Willa admitted. "Scared that it was too good to be true, that something would go wrong, that I would wake up and find myself back on that street." Nathan pressed a kiss to her temple. "You are never going back to that street. This is your home, now and always. You are my wife, the mother of my children, the love of my life." Willa turned to kiss him properly, and Thomas made an exaggerated sound of disgust that made them both laugh. "Why do you always have to kiss?" Thomas complained. "Because I love your mother," Nathan said simply. "And someday, when you are all grown up and you find someone who makes you feel the way your mother makes me feel, you will understand." "I am never getting married," Thomas declared with the certainty of a 5-year-old. "Girls are silly." "I am not silly." Rose protested, hitting her brother with her doll. Nathan and Willa exchanged amused glances as they separated their children, and redirected them to less violent activities. These were the moments Willa treasured most. Not the grand gestures or the special occasions, but the everyday moments of family life, the chaos and joy and love that filled their home. As the years passed, the ranch continued to grow. Nathan took on a partner, a young man named Samuel Hayes, who had proved himself to be trustworthy and hardworking. This allowed Nathan to spend even more time with his family, which was exactly what he wanted. When Thomas was 8 and Rose was 6, Willa gave birth to another son, whom they named Joseph. He was a quiet baby, content to observe the world with solemn eyes, and he completed their family in a way that felt exactly right. Life was not without its challenges. There were hard winters that killed cattle, dry summers that threatened the grass, and the occasional trouble with rustlers or rival ranchers. But Nathan and Willa faced everything together, their love and partnership growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame. One summer evening, when they had been married for nearly 10 years, Nathan and Willa took a rare evening alone. Samuel was watching the children, and they rode out to a spot on the ranch that overlooked the valley, the same spot where Nathan had proposed all those years ago. They sat together on a blanket, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Nathan had his arm around Willa, and she rested her head on his shoulder, perfectly content. "You ever think about what your life would have been like if we had never met?" Willa asked. "Sometimes," Nathan admitted. "I probably would have eventually married someone respectable, someone the town ladies approved of. We would have had a polite, proper marriage, and I would have been reasonably content. But I never would have known this depth of love and happiness. I never would have known you." "I think about it too," Willa said. "If you had not stopped that day, if you had walked past me like everyone else did, I do not know what would have become of me. You saved my life, Nathan." "You saved mine too," Nathan said. "I was so lonely before you came along. I did not even realize how lonely until suddenly I was not anymore. You brought light and warmth and love into my life. You gave me a family, a real home. If anyone did the saving, it was you." Willa turned to look at him. This man who had taken a chance on a desperate woman begging outside a saloon and had given her a life beyond her wildest dreams. His face was more weathered now, lines appearing at the corners of his eyes from years of squinting into the sun, but to her, he was as handsome as he had been the day they met. "I love you," she said simply. "More than I can ever express in words." "I love you too," Nathan said, kissing her softly. "More than life itself." They stayed there until full dark, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the future, remembering the past, living fully in the present. When they finally rode back to the ranch house, the windows were glowing with lamplight, and they could hear the sound of their children laughing inside. Nathan helped Willa down from her horse and pulled her close for one more kiss before they went inside. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" Willa asked. "For saying yes, for taking a chance on me, for building this life with me, for everything." Willa smiled, her heart full to bursting. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible to everyone else. Thank you for giving me a home, a family, a love I never dared to dream of. Thank you for everything you are and everything we have built together." They walked into the house hand in hand, greeted by the joyful chaos of their children. Thomas was teaching Rose a new card game while Joseph attempted to build a tower from blocks. Samuel was reading in the corner, and he looked up with a smile when they entered. "Everyone was good as gold," Samuel reported, standing to leave. "Though Rose tried to convince me that her bedtime is actually midnight." "She tries that with us too," Willa said with a laugh. "Thank you for watching them, Samuel." After Samuel left, Nathan and Willa got the children ready for bed. They read stories, heard prayers, tucked in blankets and distributed goodnight kisses. It was a routine they had performed hundreds of times, but it never grew old. Finally, when all three children were asleep, Nathan and Willa retired to their own room. As they lay together in the darkness, Willa thought about the strange, winding path that had led her to this moment. All the pain and loss she had experienced, all the fear and desperation of those weeks begging on the street, had led her to Nathan, had led her to this life, this love, this family. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, sensing that she was still awake. "How grateful I am," Willa said. "How blessed. How even though I went through terrible things, I would not change any of it because it brought me to you." Nathan tightened his arms around her. "I feel the same way. Every hard thing I went through, every loss and disappointment, it all led me to that moment outside the saloon when I saw you and knew my life was about to change." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together. The years continued to pass in a happy blur. Thomas grew into a responsible young man who showed a natural talent for ranching. He often rode out with Nathan, learning everything his father could teach him about managing the land and the cattle. Rose was bright and curious, constantly asking questions and reading every book she could get her hands on. Joseph was the quiet observer, but when he spoke, his insights were often profound beyond his years. When Thomas turned 18 in 1892, Nathan officially made him a partner in the ranch. It was a proud moment for the entire family. They held a celebration, and Nathan gave a speech about how Thomas represented the future of the Triple T and how proud he was of the man his son had become. "Your mother and I built this ranch together," Nathan said, his arm around Willa. "But it is you and your siblings who will carry it into the next century. I have every confidence that you will make it even better than we ever could." Thomas, looking remarkably like his father at that age, stood tall and accepted the responsibility with grace. "I learned from the best," he said. "Both of you. You taught me about hard work, about integrity, about treating people with respect and dignity regardless of their circumstances. Those lessons are worth more than all the land in Wyoming." Willa felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of joy and pride. Her son, the baby she had held in her arms during that snowstorm so many years ago, was now a man with his own dreams and ambitions. Rose announced that she wanted to become a teacher. She had been helping the children of the ranch hands learn to read and write, and she had discovered a passion for education. Nathan and Willa supported her dream wholeheartedly, even though it meant she would have to go to the city for training. "The world is changing," Nathan said. "Women are finding new paths, new opportunities. I want all my children to pursue their dreams, whatever those dreams may be." Joseph, at 13, was still figuring out his path. He loved the ranch but also showed an interest in mechanics and how things worked. He was constantly taking things apart and putting them back together, trying to understand the mechanisms. One evening, Nathan and Willa were sitting on the porch as they had done countless times over the years. Their children were all inside, and for a moment they had peace and quiet. "We have been blessed," Willa said softly. "More than I ever thought possible." "We have," Nathan agreed. "And it all started because I could not walk past a young woman who needed help. Best decision I ever made. Best decision I ever made was saying yes when you asked me to come to the ranch," Willa said. "And again when you asked me to marry you." Nathan took her hand, his thumb rubbing gently over her wedding ring. "Do you remember when you were so worried about what people would say? About us being from different worlds?" "I was so foolish," Willa said with a shake of her head. "You were not foolish. You were scared and uncertain, and you had every right to be. but you were brave enough to take a chance anyway. That is one of the many things I love about you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the land they had built their life on. The ranch was thriving, their children were healthy and happy, and their love had only deepened with time. Over the following years, they watched with pride as their children pursued their own paths. Thomas married a lovely young woman named Clara, daughter of a neighboring rancher, and they gave Nathan and Willa their first grandchild, a girl named Lily. Rose completed her training and returned to Jackson to open a small school, becoming one of the most respected teachers in the territory. Joseph eventually combined his love of the ranch with his mechanical skills, finding innovative ways to improve ranch operations. As Nathan and Willa grew older, they gradually turned more of the ranch operations over to Thomas and Joseph, though Nathan never fully retired. He loved the land too much to ever completely step away, but he made sure to balance work with the other joys of life, particularly spending time with Willa and their growing family of grandchildren. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered for a celebration. The ranch house, which had been expanded over the years to accommodate their growing family, was filled with laughter and love. Thomas and Clara were there with their 3 children. Rose had brought a gentleman she was courting, a lawyer from Cheyenne named David Winters. Joseph was there with his new bride, Emma, whom he had married just 6 months earlier. After dinner, Nathan stood and raised his glass. 25 years ago, I married the most remarkable woman I have ever known. She was young and had been dealt a hard hand by life, but she faced every challenge with grace and courage. Willa, you have made me happier than I ever dreamed possible. You have given me children I am proud of, a home filled with love, and a partnership that has sustained me through every trial. I love you more today than I did the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. Willa stood and kissed him to the cheers and applause of their family. Nathan Tucker, you saw me when I was invisible. You gave me hope when I had none. You loved me when I could not even love myself. These 25 years have been the greatest gift of my life, and I thank God every day that you walked past that saloon and stopped to talk to me. There was not a dry eye in the room. Even Thomas, who prided himself on being stoic like his father, was wiping at his eyes. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the house was quiet, Nathan and Willa walked out to the porch one more time. The night was clear and cool, and the stars were brilliant in the dark sky. "Do you think we would do it all again?" Willa asked. "If we could go back to the beginning, knowing everything that would happen, would you still stop that day?" Nathan pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Without hesitation. Every joy, every sorrow, every challenge and triumph, I would do it all again to end up right here, right now with you." "Even the hard parts?" Willa asked. "The winter when we almost lost the ranch. The year Rose was so sick we thought we might lose her. All of it," Nathan confirmed. "Because those hard times only made the good times sweeter. They tested us and proved that our love could weather any storm. They made us stronger, individually and together." Willa leaned back against his chest, perfectly content. "I feel the same way. I would not change a single thing." They stood there together, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and had built a life that exceeded their wildest dreams. The ranch that Nathan had inherited had become a legacy for their children and grandchildren. The love that had started with a simple act of kindness had grown into something extraordinary, something that would endure long after they were gone. As they grew older still, Nathan and Willa settled into the comfortable rhythms of their later years. They spent their days working in the garden Willa had always wanted, taking long walks around the property, and spoiling their grandchildren outrageously. Nathan's hair turned silver, and Willa's face showed the lines of a life well lived. But to each other, they were as beautiful as they had been on their wedding day. On a warm summer evening in 1903, Nathan and Willa sat on their porch watching the sunset as they had done thousands of times before. They were both in their 60s now, healthy and happy, surrounded by family and loved by all who knew them. "I have been thinking," Nathan said, taking Willa's hand in his. "About what?" Willa asked. "About legacy. About what we leave behind when we are gone." "That is rather morbid for such a beautiful evening," Willa said, though there was no real censure in her voice. "Not morbid, just honest. We are not young anymore, my love. But when I look at what we have built, I am at peace. We have 3 wonderful children who have become good, kind adults. We have grandchildren who will carry our values into the future. We have this ranch, which will provide for our descendants for generations. But more than any of that, we have shown our family what real love looks like, what partnership and respect and unwavering commitment look like. That is the real legacy." Willa squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar calluses from decades of hard work. "You are right. We have built something beautiful, not just this ranch or this family, but a life based on love and mutual respect. I am proud of what we have accomplished together." "I could not have done any of it without you," Nathan said. "You were the missing piece I did not even know I was looking for. You made everything better, brighter, more meaningful." "We made each other better," Willa corrected gently. "That is what love does. It brings out the best in us, makes us want to be more than we are." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to deep purple. The air was filled with the sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. In the distance, they could hear their grandchildren playing, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. "You remember what you said to me the night you proposed?" Willa asked. "I said a lot of things that night," Nathan said with a smile. "I was rather verbose, as I recall. You said you wanted 50 years of waking up next to me every morning. We are getting close to that." Nathan lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "And I want 50 more after that, and 50 more after that. I will never have enough time with you, Willa." "Nor I with you," Willa said softly. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Thomas rode up to the house. He dismounted and walked over to the porch, his boots making familiar sounds on the wooden steps. "Everything is settled for the night," he reported. "The cattle are all accounted for, the hands are in the bunkhouse, and the horses are fed and watered." "Thank you, son," Nathan said. "You do good work." Thomas smiled, the expression so like his father's that it made Willa's heart swell. "I learned from the best." "You two need anything before I head home to Clara and the kids. We are fine," Willa assured him. "Give our love to your family." After Thomas left, Nathan and Willa remained on the porch a while longer, reluctant to end this perfect day. Finally, as the air grew cool and the night deepened, they went inside to the home they had created together. As they prepared for bed, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of decades of marriage, Willa caught Nathan's eye in the mirror. He smiled at her and she smiled back, a whole conversation happening in that simple exchange. They climbed into bed, and Nathan pulled Willa close, just as he had done every night for 25 years. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I love you, Nathan Tucker," she whispered. "I love you, Willa Tucker," he replied. "Always and forever." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, secure in a love that had weathered every storm and only grown stronger with time. Outside, the ranch they had built together stretched out under the stars, a testament to their hard work and dedication. Inside, the house they had made a home stood as proof that love, real love, could conquer any obstacle. The years continued to pass gently. Nathan and Willa celebrated their 30th, then their 35th anniversary, each milestone a testament to the enduring power of their love. They watched as their grandchildren grew and some even married, giving them great-grandchildren to dote on. Rose married her lawyer, David, and they had 2 children who showed their mother's love of learning. Joseph and Emma had a daughter who inherited her father's mechanical mind. The family continued to grow and thrive, all of them benefiting from the foundation Nathan and Willa had built. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1918, the entire extended family gathered once again. There were so many people now that the celebration had to be held outside, with tables set up in the yard and a whole steer roasted for the occasion. Nathan, now in his early 70s, stood with Willa by his side and looked out at the sea of faces. His children, their spouses, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, ranch hands who had become like family, neighbors and friends from town. All of them were here to celebrate a love story that had started with an act of simple kindness 40 years ago. 40 years, Nathan said, his voice still strong despite his age. 40 years since I married the love of my life. People sometimes ask me the secret to a long and happy marriage. The truth is, there is no secret. You find someone who makes you want to be better. You treat them with respect and kindness every single day. You choose love over and over again, even when it is hard. And if you are very lucky, they choose you back. He turned to Willa, who stood beside him in a beautiful dress their daughters-in-law had helped her pick out. Her hair was white now, and her face showed the lines of a life filled with laughter and love, but to Nathan, she was as beautiful as the day he had first seen her. Willa, you have been my partner, my best friend, my confidante, and my greatest love. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Thank you for taking a chance on a lonely rancher all those years ago. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me. Willa took both his hands in hers, tears streaming down her face. Nathan, you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. You gave me a home when I had none. You gave me love when I had forgotten what it felt like. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to wake up grateful every single morning. I am the luckiest woman who ever lived because you chose to stop that day, because you chose to see me, really see me, when I was invisible to the rest of the world. They kissed, to the cheers and applause of their family, and the celebration continued long into the night. There was music and dancing, and stories were told about the couple who had built such an amazing legacy of love. Late in the evening, after most of the guests had gone home and only family remained, Willa found herself sitting with her daughters-in-law and granddaughters, all of them wanting to hear the story of how she and Nathan met. I was begging outside the saloon in Jackson, Willa said, not ashamed of her past. She had learned long ago that there was no shame in having struggled, only in giving up. I had nothing and no one. I was so desperate and scared. And then this man walked up to me, this tall, handsome rancher, and he asked me if I could cook. Just like that, he changed my entire life. Were you scared to come to the ranch with him? One of her granddaughters asked. Terrified, Willa admitted, but I was more scared of staying where I was. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith, trust that things will work out. Your grandfather gave me a reason to have faith again. How did you go from being his housekeeper to being his wife? Clara, Thomas's wife, asked. Willa smiled, remembering that storm-tossed evening when everything had changed. We fell in love. It was not something either of us planned. It just happened, gradually and then all at once. He proposed a few months after I came to the ranch, and I said yes because I knew, even then, that he was the best man I would ever meet. That is so romantic, one of the younger girls sighed. It was, Willa agreed, But the real romance is not in the proposal or the wedding. It is in the 40 years that came after. It is in the way he still brings me coffee every morning, exactly how I like it. It is in the way we can sit together in comfortable silence, not needing words to communicate. It is in the way we have faced every challenge together as partners. That is real love, and that is what I wish for all of you. Later, when everyone had finally gone to bed, Nathan and Willa took one last walk around the ranch. It was slow going now, their steps not as sure as they once were, but they took their time, leaning on each other both literally and figuratively. Tired, Nathan asked. A little, Willa admitted. But happy, so very happy. Me too, Nathan said. I keep thinking about everything we have accomplished, and it amazes me. All of this, all these people, it all started because I could not walk past someone in need. Compassion, Willa said. That is your defining characteristic, Nathan Tucker. You saw someone who needed help and you helped, not because you wanted something in return, but because it was the right thing to do. Best decision I ever made, Nathan said for what must have been the 1,000th time over the years, but it never got old. They made their way back to the house, to the bedroom they had shared for 4 decades. As they prepared for bed, Willa looked around the room at the photographs on the walls documenting their life together. Their wedding day, each of their children as babies, grandchildren, the ranch over the years, a visual history of a life well lived. No regrets, Nathan asked as they climbed into bed. Not a single one, Willa said. You? Only that I did not stop sooner that first day. I walked past the saloon twice before I finally talked to you. I wasted hours that I could have spent with you. Willa laughed and snuggled closer to him. We have had plenty of time together, my love. 40 wonderful years and counting. And counting, Nathan agreed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. They drifted off to sleep together as they had done for 14,000 nights and would continue to do for many more. Outside, the ranch settled into quiet. The cattle were peaceful, the horses rested, and the land that Nathan and Willa had nurtured for so long lay quiet under the stars. The years that followed were gentler, slower. Nathan and Willa spent most of their time on the porch, watching their great-grandchildren play in the yard, receiving visits from family, and simply enjoying each other's company. They had both slowed down considerably, but their minds remained sharp, and their love remained strong. On a beautiful spring morning in 1920, Nathan woke to find Willa still sleeping beside him, something that had become more common as they aged. He did not wake her, just watched her sleep peacefully, her chest rising and falling with each breath. Even in sleep, she had a slight smile on her face as if she were dreaming of something pleasant. When she finally woke, she found him watching her and smiled wider. "Good morning, my love." "Good morning," Nathan said, leaning over to kiss her. "I was just thinking how blessed I am to wake up next to you after all these years." 42 years, Willa said. "Can you believe it has been that long? Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like forever. Mostly it just feels right." They took their time getting up, helped each other dress, and made their way downstairs. Thomas and his family were living in the ranch house now, helping to care for Nathan and Willa while managing the ranch operations. Clara had breakfast waiting for them, and they ate surrounded by family as they had for so many years. After breakfast, Nathan and Willa took their customary walk, though it was shorter now and slower. They made it to the garden and sat on the bench Nathan had built years ago, looking out over the land they loved. "You think we will get to stay together?" Willa asked suddenly. "In the next life, I mean. Do you think God will let us be together?" Nathan took her hand, alarmed by the question. "Are you feeling all right?" "I am fine," Willa assured him. "I was just thinking about eternity. We have been together for so long in this life, I cannot imagine an eternity without you. I think, Nathan said carefully, that a God who created love as powerful as what we share would not tear us apart in the next life. I think we will be together, Willa, now and always. Willa leaned her head on his shoulder. I think so too. I just wanted to hear you say it. They sat there for a long time, holding hands and watching the clouds drift across the sky. When they finally made their way back to the house, Nathan noticed that Willa seemed more tired than usual. He suggested she rest, and she agreed without argument, which was unusual enough to worry him slightly. She slept through the afternoon, and Nathan sat in a chair beside the bed, reading but frequently looking up to check on her. When she woke as the sun was setting, she smiled at him. You have been watching over me, she said. Always, Nathan replied. How are you feeling? Loved, Willa said simply. So very loved. That night they went to bed early, both of them tired. As they lay together, Willa turned to Nathan and kissed him softly. Thank you, she said. For what? For everything. For stopping that day. For seeing me. For loving me. For giving me the most beautiful life I could have imagined. For being exactly who you are. Nathan felt a lump in his throat. Thank you for saying yes, for taking a chance on me. For making me happier than any man has a right to be. I love you, Willa Tucker. I have loved you from almost the first moment I saw you, and I will love you until the end of time and beyond. I love you too, Nathan Tucker, with everything I am and everything I have. You are my heart, my home, my everything. They held each other close, and eventually they both drifted off to sleep. When Nathan woke the next morning, he found that Willa had passed peacefully in her sleep, still wearing the slight smile she always had, still cradled in his arms where she belonged. The grief that crashed over Nathan was overwhelming, but even through his tears, he was grateful. Grateful that she had not suffered, grateful that their last words to each other had been words of love, grateful for every single day they had shared. The funeral was attended by what seemed like half the territory. Willa had touched so many lives with her kindness and grace. Person after person came up to Nathan to tell him stories about how Willa had helped them, encouraged them, made them feel valued. He listened to each story, grateful to know that the woman he loved had made such a positive impact on the world. After Willa was laid to rest in the small cemetery on the ranch, Nathan found it hard to go on. For 42 years, she had been his constant companion, his partner in all things. The house felt empty without her, even though it was full of family. His bed felt cold without her warmth beside him. Thomas was worried about his father. Nathan seemed to have lost his will to live. He barely ate, rarely spoke, and spent most of his time sitting by Willa's grave or on the porch where they had spent so many evenings together. But one morning, about 2 weeks after Willa's passing, Thomas found his father in the kitchen, making coffee. Nathan looked up when Thomas entered and managed a small smile. I dreamed about your mother last night, Nathan said. She told me I was being foolish, wasting the time I have left mourning when I should be living. She reminded me that we have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who need me. Thomas felt tears spring to his eyes. That sounded exactly like something his mother would say. She was right, as she usually was, Nathan continued. I miss her with every breath I take, and I will miss her every day for the rest of my life. But I will not dishonor her memory by giving up. She fought too hard for the life we built for me to just abandon it now. From that day forward, Nathan began to truly live again. He spent time with his family, told stories about Willa that kept her memory alive, and worked on a project he had been thinking about for years. He wrote down the story of his and Willa's life together, from that day outside the saloon to their last night together, everything. He wanted future generations to know the story, to understand that love, real love, was worth fighting for. 2 years after Willa's passing, on a quiet morning in the spring of 1922, Nathan died peacefully in his sleep. His family gathered to lay him to rest beside Willa, and on his tombstone they carved a simple epitaph that captured the essence of his life. He saw someone who needed help, and he helped. In doing so, he found his greatest love. The ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's management, and eventually under his children's management. The family grew and spread, but they all carried with them the lessons Nathan and Willa had taught them about compassion, hard work, and the transformative power of love. The story of the rancher who took in a woman begging outside a saloon and made her his wife became a cherished family legend, passed down through generations. Their descendants would tell it to their own children, emphasizing the importance of seeing people as they truly are, not as their circumstances might suggest. They spoke of the courage it took to take a chance on love, and the rewards that came from treating others with dignity and respect. The ranch house, expanded and renovated over the years but never abandoned, stood as a monument to what Nathan and Willa had built together. In the parlor hung a large portrait of them, painted on their 50th wedding anniversary. They stood together, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the artist. The painting captured not just their appearance but the deep love and respect they had for each other, visible in every brushstroke. Visitors to the ranch, family and friends alike, would often stop and look at that portrait, marveling at the love story it represented. Some would remember Nathan and Willa personally and would share their memories. Others knew them only through stories, but those stories were so vivid, so full of love and life, that it was almost like knowing them in person. The legacy Nathan and Willa left behind was not just the thriving ranch or the large extended family. It was the example they set, the proof that love could conquer any obstacle, that compassion could change lives, and that two people, through commitment and partnership, could build something that would endure long after they were gone. In the end, their love story was simple but profound. A man saw a woman in need and helped her. She took a chance on him. They fell in love. They built a life together based on mutual respect, deep affection, and unwavering commitment. And from that simple beginning grew something extraordinary, something that touched countless lives and created a legacy that would endure for generations. It was a love story for the ages, born in the dusty streets of Jackson, Wyoming, nurtured on a ranch under wide western skies, and immortalized in the hearts and memories of all who knew them. Nathan and Willa Tucker had proven that true love, the kind that changes lives and builds legacies, can start in the most unlikely places with the simplest act of human kindness. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, they were together again, reunited in a love that not even death could diminish. Their story complete, their love eternal, their legacy assured.